I'm Shauna's Mason, and I want to continue a conversation that I have been having with two amazing gentlemen for the past 30 years. I'm talking to Gary Mason II and Brian Harris. Gary is the CEO of Media First Creations. Brian is the CEO of Green Dragon Entertainment. And these two young gentlemen from Washington, D.C., have known each other since 1996, have been working in production at Black Entertainment Television, and are now working on a project whose time has come. It's called The Black Room. And I'm here to find out all the good details about this project. Welcome, gentlemen. Brian, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about your production background, a little bit about yourself.
Well, my production background started in Washington, D.C. as one of the first people to join what's now called DCTV, which has become the cable network in DC's local cable. And I started there. I started working with a few guys, gentlemen from Howard University, and their company was called Progressive Productions, and I was like the youngest person there. They were still at Howard getting ready to graduate, and I myself also was still in school, and I was renting equipment out from DCTV, and we would go up to New York and we would shoot at the Apollo. Well, I also did some stuff working with joining the group first of all, and then working with them. Black Filmmakers Foundation, which are the Hudlin brothers. And there was a connection with Spike Lee in there. And so we went around the 40 Acres and a Mule. They were just getting started. And the film bug bit me. And I was like, okay, let me go ahead and see what I could do. And still around DC doing stuff with Progressive Productions. And I had my feet in the streets, so to speak, and hanging out with family and cousins and few friends and whatnot. And at this particular time, there was this thing going on in Washington, D.C. called City Under Siege. And I kind of got caught up in that nonsense, meaning I was leaving with one of my cousins. We were hanging out, and I was leaving on my way home and got stopped by the police because there had been a shooting down the street.
Mhm.
And I just remember being stretched out on the yellow lines on Sherman Avenue with a shotgun to my head and being told what I just did, what happened, so forth and so on, having nothing to do with said event. And once we got out of there and left, I went home. I said, I'm out of here. I left, went back to New York, told my folks, I'm going to make films. And I
Wow.
was told, ain't no black folks making films. I'm like, yeah, yes, they are. Well, if you don't think so, let me be the first to do it. I went up on a Wednesday and had a job at 40 Acres Thursday. And
Wow. So you ended up at Black Entertainment Television, you said in 89. And if I'm correct, you were there from 1989 all the way to 99. And is that during that time when you met Gary?
yes, yes. Now, see, the thing is, while I was at BET, I was still going back on vacation working with 40 Acres. So I never cut ties. I made sure, I had time to go ahead and do that. And Gary and I bumped into each other. Tavis Smiley, his show was one of the shows that I had to do. And I brought in a gentleman by the name of Bill Mitchell, and
Mm-hmm.
I had Bill cover that show because that was an evening show. And then I ran into Gary again at a sit down, which was through Kevin Levrone. He was getting ready to do a film,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking across the table. Gary could correct me if I'm wrong. Cheesecake Factory is where we met, and I look across the table like I know this guy, And if you know Gary has a very stoic look about him when you first meet him. It's not about a smile, it's not about a pleasantry, it's about business. And I respect that. And so same here, because when I go into places production wise, they automatically assume I'm security. I don't talk to people, I don't smile at people. You know, I'll greet you, but that's about all you're gonna get out of me, because I'm studying the lay of the land, so to speak, to see who's who, what's what, and reading the room. That's what I do in, yeah, 96. Yep,
Yep.
officially bumping to Gary again across the table in Cheesecake Factory, and see what
That's
we gonna do and how it's gonna happen.
that's right.
Well, so Brian, you were doing lighting at Black Entertainment Television. You had your toe still, or maybe your foot still at 40 Acres and a Mule. You meet
Mhm.
Gary, and Gary, you were a cameraman at Black Entertainment Television. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I actually I was coming into BET in 19 the back end of 1996. I had just finished doing a I would say a 2-3 year internship slash camera job with the 1996 Olympics. So I had to show up in Atlanta 2 years prior. There was something called a host broadcast training program. I was at Howard University and they had a host broadcast training program out of Atlanta, which was the um, pre Atlanta Committee of Olympic Games organization, was bringing in university students from around the United States, and you can come in and work in production as an intern. And I remember getting down there. I had been doing some photography work through high school and was loved just putting together still photographs and then turning them into motion pictures through slide presentations back in the day. We didn't have all the technology that we do now, but I loved moving photographs and moving pictures, if you would say. And I remember going down to Atlanta. I was assigned to the Georgia Tech Aquatic Center,
Mhm.
and the cameraman or the production team for this underwater pneumatic camera device didn't show up, but the equipment showed up. So they didn't have a cameraman. So the director, a guy by the name of Douglas Wren, he was the director for the 1996 Olympic Games. He said, "Hey, look, who in here has skills on the camera, would love to learn the system to navigate it?" So I just threw my hand up real fast. I said, "I will." And I was probably one of the only students that had a live camera job for the 1996 Olympics. I shot over 138 races for the swimming venue. I shot the synchronized swimming. I shot about 37 award ceremonies, and then I stayed around in the back end of '96, and I shot the Paralympics over at the stadium that was built, the new stadium that was built in Atlanta. So that kind of began my career as a videographer. I'd always wanted to move over to the producer side, but it was kind of easy to get in the door if you had some skills on the technical side. So I used the camera skills to work around directors and producers, and came
Hmm.
home. I started shooting commercials for the U.S. Postal Service. Um, and then while I was working at the Washington Post, that was from 90 to like 95 before I left and started the media portion of my career. I had built relationships in Washington, D.C., that being my hometown. My family and I are from the Shaw community, 14th and U Street in D.C., so I had a very lively growing up. Grandmother, grandfather was a black entrepreneur, and my grandmother always said, "Look, get into storytelling because you love talking, son." So I remember telling those stories through pictures and photographs, and I said, "This might end up being my, you know, my niche, what I do for life." And so in '96, as that year ended, I remember coming back home to Washington, D.C., and someone said, "Hey, why don't you come on down? We're doing a teen summit on Saturday morning, and I wanted to see if you wanted to come down to the set and see what we're doing here at BET." Well, it just so happened there was a guy named Joe Phillips who was running production down there at the studio. Studio A and B is what they called it. And I remember getting down there, and he needed someone on camera one, which was stage right. I think Ananda Lewis was doing the show that day, and I went down there, grabbed the camera, and they had a music video going that day. And I remember jumping down there. I took the camera off the tripod, and I got to give him some fancy low angle shots from the beginning of the stage. And man, that must have worked magic, because after that, they offered me a job working at BET. And so that began my career. And ever since then, um, telling stories through images and looking through lenses has always been my gift. And just loving to share stories, hidden stories that people don't know about. I did a 15-year stint in the Army after that, did public affairs, trained a lot of combat cameramen in combat, Iraq and Afghanistan, got out in 2015. Brian and I relinked, and I said, Brian, it's time to do film 15, 20 years later. What stories do we have? And man, we just reminisced, and here we are today talking about the Black Room.
No, I was just going to say, speaking of the Black Room, which is why
Right.
we're here today,
Mhm.
the Black Room, first of all, is a very unique title for the series that you all have put together, and it's exciting because there's a meaning behind the Black Room. I've heard of the Green Room, but I've never heard of the Black Room. So someone jump in and explain what is the Black Room and what does it mean? Or maybe you can both give me your thoughts on how you came up with the title and what's the significance of the Black Room, because this is the most intriguing part of the whole project to me, is the name, the Black Room.
Well, I'll
I-
start by saying this. Is that okay, Brian?
sure, go
We're gonna
for it.
take turns, right? Um,
Mhm.
Initially, Brian and I talked about all the stories that we would have behind the scenes. See, it's one thing to see celebrities and entertainers and Hollywood, celebs who are in front of the camera, all patted down with makeup and under the lights, but I got to see it from an interesting perspective, which was in the green room. Everybody knows who worked at BET, the majority of the gossip, all the down low, and everything that went on was happening in that green room. If you really want to know what's going on with somebody's life, get back in there in the green room and hear all the stuff that they're not willing to say or won't say on camera. And so,
Mhm.
look, me being a cameraman looking through the lens, Brian setting up sets, he's adding lights and I'm putting that camera in your face. But when you heard the word cut, all the anger, frustration, all the laughter and jokes came out behind the scenes. So
Mhm.
when we start chopping it up, Brian and I talking, we start having this conversation about, man, you remember 15, 20 years ago when my man wasn't in jail, or this didn't happen, or he had multiple wives, multiple children. Now he's in jail for what? And that was a conversation that was coming out in the green room. We just didn't know in the future that's where that celeb's career was going to end up. So I said, Brian, in that green room, it was full of hue and full of color. And I said, it's interesting. I said, Brian, it would be nice if we told this story about the darkness of the industry. What's going on
Mhm.
behind closed doors? What's going on in that bedroom? I said, Brian, it's a dark thing. I said, they call it the green room, but we should put something together called the Black Room. And that's how we got rolling with this. So, Brian, please be my guest. Help a brother
Oh,
out.
well, that is so true. And on top of that, the the young guests that we had, the guests that were in our age range and younger, whenever they went into the green room, it was lonely to them because
Mm.
they would walk out the door and look up and down the hallway, and our break room was right to the right. And they would come out and walk down the break room and, hey, how's it going? And just talk. So it lent itself to a family environment. It lent itself to the barbershop environment for conversation, the hair salon, whatever. The conversation it would happen. And hey man, how Celebs, hey man, how long you working here? One example, Al Jarreau. Al Jarreau was in there in the green room, and he was sitting around, and like Gary said, he was one of the ones who said, "Who's gonna eat all this damn food?" So he opened the door and he looked around, and he came into the break area where we were, and he said, "Hey man, um, did y'all have lunch yet?" "Oh, we on break right now, sir. Blah, blah." He said, "Okay, all right. Hey, I got some sandwiches in here if y'all want some." And we started laughing. And he was like, "No, no, no." And someone said, "Oh, we're not allowed to go in there because that's for the guests and whatever." Al Jarreau went in the green room, brought his tray of food out and set it on the table and sat down with us and started eating. And then he said, "Hey, is there a smoke area around here?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you could go outside right here, or you could go out back." And he said, "Okay, great." So boom, he goes out. We called it the fishbowl because it was an oval shaped area with all glass. You could
That's
look in
right.
it and all that.
That's right.
And so he's out there on the smoke break, and one of the production people came by and said, "We're panic. PA's panic. Where's Mr. Jarreau? Where's Mr. Jarreau? He chilling." "What do you mean he's chilling?" "He right there." "Oh my God." "What do you mean, oh my God?" "That brother's out there having a smoke break in a conversation with a few people. What's going on?" Went out there and said, "Mr. Jerome, we'll be looking for you on set in 5 minutes." He said, "Okay, you want me now?" He said, "Not right now, but I'm just letting you know." He's like, "I'll be finished the cigarette. I'll be right in." Dude, he was pleasant. Goes in, we do the show. I believe Gary, not you, Gary, but Gary Price may have been directing, or Larry was doing it. Either way, that was the show. Mr. Giroux, they call break, and he didn't want to go back around toward the green room. So he's like, "Is this the way I can smoke out here?" Tracy Sasha, "Yeah, man, you go right out that door right there, through that door right there, and you be right outside." And he looked at Tracy, he looked at the door, he looked at Tracy again. I said, "Sir, I'll show you which way to go." He was like, he said that like I work here. We just laughed about it. Walked him outside, he was smoking a cigarette. We started laughing and joking. And he was telling jokes. And I was like, "Oh, he's real cool." And I told him, I said, "My dad introduced me to you through music. We're in This Love Together was one of my dad's favorite songs." I said, "It wasn't one of mine." And he had just got finished performing that. And he was like, "It wasn't one of yours?" Like, "Hey, what do you mean?" I said, "Rooftop Garden was my favorite." He was like, "What?" And he did it right there. Boom. I was like, "Oh shit." We didn't have cell phones then. I couldn't call nobody and say, "Man, Algebra." I got to sit right here and take it. I loved it. So once he finished, I said, "Have you ever heard this joke?" He said, "What?" I said, "I got it from uh what's my man with the fingers? Hall. God dog it. He had the late night show. Arsenio
Arsenio.
Hall. There you go. I got it from Arsenio Hall. He said, "What's the joke, man? What's the joke, man?" I said, "Do you know at this time there were no black astronauts?" I said, "Do you know why you won't get any black astronauts to go in outer space?" He said, "Huh? Why?" I said, "Because it reminds them of slavery. They're not going to get up there and go, 'Yes, NASA, no NASA.'" He fell out. He thought that was the funniest thing he heard. Oh, he was like, "Oh, man, really? Hey, yeah, it's too close to yes, master, no master." I said, "Exactly. That's why we are black astronauts." He thought it was
Wow.
the funniest thing he heard. That's one story. And that all spawned from the green room. And it's meant, and me and Gary and I talk about it. It's many, many more. It's like, hold up. Gary got to talk about this one. The time Gary got bum rushed in the man's bathroom, Maxwell and Redman. They in the men's room changing. And Gary was like, what?
Hey,
Go ahead, Gary, with that one.
we're going to talk about that, Brian, at the next break.
Okay.
Okay, okay, okay. So the black room represents family. It represents melanin. It represents the barbershop, connections with famous people in ways that people would not expect. Brian, you mentioned Redman and a story in the bathroom. Gary, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, let me get that story correct real fast, quick, and in a hurry, okay? We were both just happened to be in the bathroom in between, shoots, right? And bathroom is where a lot of times they would come in there and change clothes, but we both standing at the stall. And I was just impressed by the fact that Redman was a down to earth person. It wasn't what he has always been presented by as the record label would promote him. This brother is an intelligent brother who can speak English like he's a professor. And I was just surprised because if it hadn't been for the conversation that Brian and I had about these celebrities behind the scenes, a lot of times you might believe the stereotypes that are being portrayed by the industry execs. Redman back in the day was one of the top, you know, uh, rappers that came out. What was the crew? He rapped with Meth. What was the name of the group? Was it the Wu-Tang Clan, Brian?
Oh no, that's Method Man. Nah, Redman was more associated with Flavor Unit, the Jersey Crews.
Okay.
Everybody out of New Jersey. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. It was interesting because not only did I meet him in the bathroom, we were changing, getting ready, working. I did run across Maxwell also. The strangest story is that particular show was with Planet Groove, and what was our girl's name, Brian, who was on the set that day? Was it Rachel?
Yes, sir.
Rachel was the host of that show, and Maxwell, him being the crooner that he is, I think was trying to get a play on Rachel. I remember Rachel coming out saying, "Hey, look, could you act like you're my boyfriend or my husband so Maxwell will back up off of me?" And I'm gonna tell you something. Seeing him in there getting his ruffles ready, putting on his cologne, doing his hair, you know, chopping it up, laughing. We get to see who these people are behind the scenes, and we were able to play that role, and he did kind of back up a little bit, when he realized that Rachel supposedly had a boyfriend, husband on the set that was watching him. But some of those stories and these celebrities that we probably know about 60 to about, I don't know, between the both of us, maybe 100 some celebrities that we've met behind the scenes in some of these odd locations where we really got to see what type of people they really are. And
Hmm.
I think that was a blessing.
I think it's a blessing too, and it's also intriguing because it sounds like some very interesting things are going to be revealed in the series. Will there be secrets? Will there be surprises?
Well, look, let me tell you something. There's going to be an understanding of why people do what they do, or why
Hmm.
people ended up in jail, or yes, you can
Mm.
say secrets.
So we're
Things,
Mm.
things that the average person would not know about these celebs. Brian, would you attest?
No gatekeeping here, baby. We are pulling back the veil on everything.
Right. So yes, Sean, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And it's not only, and I'm not talking about salacious things necessarily. I'm just talking about finding out who these people really are and what they really are like. I mean, just hearing about Rachel and her asking you to do that. I mean, I understand that as a woman. She wanted a little bit of a buffer and you provided that, and that's a real human thing. So I guess we will have to tune into the series when it comes to television to find out just the real side of these uh, famous people who are just people, who are humans. And Brian, you mentioned uh, not gatekeeping. What do you mean by that?
Wow, not gatekeeping. Okay. When it comes down to the celebrities and the black room is a character itself. The celebrities are characters for sure. We are behind the scenes with those people that were PAs and producers that became BET's gatekeepers. They didn't want you talking to the celebrities. They didn't want you walking down the hallway when they walk. And we're not talking Michael Jackson, Mariah Carey, anybody like that. We talking about the regular, literally regular performers, people that they sought us out. Believe it or not, they would seek us out to have some semblance of normalcy because they're
Mm,
like, man, I came down from New York. I came from so and so, snooping. I came from the West Coast. Man, I believe this. Man, this is good. I support what's going on. That's why I'm here. Look, they would say, I want to be around my people.
mm,
But we had gatekeepers at BET that wanted to keep you away from them. One of the vice presidents, Jeff Lee, I don't want you having cameras around and taking pictures and harassing any of them and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I respect that. But my job as a lighting person, which became lighting director and designer here, I had to see what my set looks like. I'm sorry, Scott would kill me. Once Scott Perkins designed the set and he dropped it, I had to light it with the vision that he had so that it portrayed through the camera just as he sees it. And so I had my camera all the time. I was taking pictures. Why was I doing that? Because my camera had a light meter in it. They were too cheap to get me a light meter. I had to go out and lobby for my own light meter. And then when I got the light meter, it wasn't the typical handheld light meter. I had a spot meter. You look through it just like a camera. It looks like an Super 8 camera. You look through it, check it out, see where your hot spots are and things like that. And I'm like, oh, I gotta lighten that up. I gotta lighten that up. Now this is just for the set. Then once the person or people come into play and we know where their marks are and things like that, then I get their backlight, their wraparound light. Everything's great because we don't know if they're going to go right, left, whichever gives them the best angle for camera. I have to be ready for everything. And I made sure I was so that, it made the camera person's job a lot easier, the director's job a lot easier. It gave them a lot more shots to deal with because the lighting director that was there before, he spotted everything down and told him stand in one location and he wasn't doing nothing else after that.
Well,
I,
you know,
I
Brian, let me tell you something, man.
yeah.
We giving those folk credit, but you know, the thing that I liked about having a conversation with you is while we were doing all that, we were having these conversations with the talent. And those conversations
Mhm.
is key, and that's what drove us to wanting to do the Black Room because while we were the best or professionals in our craft, whether it was lighting or whether it was camera work and dealing with these producers and all these, we're going back to the word gatekeepers, right?
Mhm.
What we found is that celebs really wanted to have a relationship and a conversation with us. And they would always say, hey, what are you doing? Do you ever want to come out and work with me? If you ever want to, here's my card. And I think the gatekeepers that were working as producers and directors, they were not wanting us to build those type of relationships with them. And as being two young inner city brothers from DC in the 80s and 90s working there at BET, um, we were trying to figure out, hey, look, our career goes it goes beyond these walls. So
Mhm.
it starts with networking and building relationships with good people. And I'm gonna tell you something. I think that I understand the protocols and the business and the acumen that goes with protecting people and celebs and having agents and legal things to make sure we're not
Hmm.
harassing people. But a lot of times, the celebrities that came, you can name all the hip hop artists. You can go from TLC to LL Cool J to,
Hmm.
Lil Kim, Sean Puffy Combs, and Brian. We can go through the whole list. Well, guess what? In the Black Room, we're talking about all of them because all these names and more we've met at the Black
Yep.
Entertainment Television Studios. The thing about it is, though, for the first time, we got an opportunity to tell you about, look, what happened? What were these people really like? Were they already set on an azimuth to end up in jail?
Mm.
Or did they have room to curtail, or did they have to be initiated to go further in their career? We've had those conversations. And I'm telling you, I'm really excited about the opportunity of being able to finally talk about these things, Brian, Sean,
Yes,
that
sir.
have not been talked about, in the industry. So, Brian, I ain't mean to stop you from going on about these directors
Oh
and
no, no.
producers, but we ain't got to give them credit. We got to talk about the Black Room, which is the people who were in that Black Room. A lot of times, I think the producers and directors wanted to have our relationship with that talent,
Yes,
but it
yes,
didn't work
yes.
out because it seemed like they were more trying to, as far as giving, they weren't. They were trying to take for the wrong reasons. We were just the crew. All we were doing is kicking it, saying, hello, what's up, what you doing? What you doing out? You want to get chicken wings? Snoop wanted to go smoke weed and he wanted to go to the go-go joint. So which one of the crew wanted to do that? I didn't personally, but I'm going to tell you, it was funny knowing that that's what he wanted to do after the set. How about that? Those are the kind of conversations, Shay, that we really, really talk about here.
Well, you all
Yeah.
have given me an education, and I'm sure the people who are listening are learning something really interesting. And that is that although they may have been well meaning in trying to curtail your relationship with these celebs, in order for you, Brian, to be an effective lighting person, and
Hmm.
Gary, for you to be an effective cameraman and to bring out the best in these celebrities, you had to get to know them. You had to be the real people around them. And that's exactly what you did. And being in your 20s, this was in the 80s and 90s, and you were young, you're just being yourselves. It sounds to me like you provided an opportunity for these people to relax, get to know the city, and just open up and be themselves on camera. And what I'm excited about is all the little stories that you have, and you all have talked to me about at least 100 different little snippets, stories that no one would know. You two brothers from DC who have this Florida Avenue U Street connection have a gold mine in your hands in the Black Room, and I'm just so excited. And so I kind of want to segue into um, what what do you want to convey to your audience with the series The Black Room? And I'm going to start with you, Gary, and then if Brian, you could jump in. What do you want the audience to get out of this?
What I want to get, what I really want the audience to get from this series is education about how to do things the right way in the media industry. We seeing all the results of the Weinsteins, the Epsteins, the Diddy, Clive Davis, all these execs or people who have found themselves in bad situations or, not around today because of, you know, trying to find the fast track or the easy way versus doing the work. I think we would really like to use the Black Room to show people that you can be a part of this industry and be a great technician or a great producer or a great writer or a great editor without having to sleep with someone in the industry or allow yourself to be initiated in any type of dark way. It's okay to just really, really love your craft, whatever that is, in film or television and production, without having the pressures of having to do things you don't want to do. I didn't want to get into bed with people. All I wanted to do was learn every aspect of my camera. I wanted to know the story and I wanted to love the craft so that I
Hmm.
could, be a content creator and eventually one day become a film producer, director, a cinematographer. And I'm gonna tell you something. Um, a lot of people got hurt coming innocently into this industry, not
Mhm.
having good mentors to help guide them the right way without maybe ending up like a lot of our artists or entertainers. A lot of them ended up on drug addictions. A lot of them
Mhm.
ended up, selling their bodies out, or having severe alcohol issues, or taking pain meds to get through the arduous long nights of being in the studio. Maybe it started off with a habit like Marvin Gaye, just smoking, recreational weed, which eventually turned into cocaine because of the pressures of the business. It's hard to find good people to really take you under their wing and really mentor you or train you or teach you without some type of catch 22. You know, can we just do this business honestly? Maybe not. I don't know. But I think when Brian and I got to talking about it, I said, Brian, did you? And he asked me, did I? I said, nah, man, I've been clean the whole time. Now, I'm not perfect. I didn't made a lot of errors in my life, and I've made a lot of mistakes in the industry, but I did not do anything that could have possibly destroyed my life or having to become part of some secret society in order to be successful. And I'm sure Brian would attest, a lot of people probably are not successful now in the industry because they didn't take some of those, initiations. And so if we got to take a little longer to get our story out there, I think Brian and I are going to do that with the Black Room.
Well, I love that message of not having to compromise because it's 2025, and if you turn on the news and if you look at social media, you could almost believe as a young person coming into this industry that there are no other options. And so I think it's a great message. Um, Brian, what are your thoughts on the impact you want to have on the audience that sees the Black Room, both young and middle and older?
My approach is everything I do, I have integrity.
Mm,
Um, I have things for sale, but not my soul or myself. I sell my skills. I sell my professionalism. Uh, I approach everything I do with 110% integrity. It's going to get done. It's going to get done the right way. And if I could extend my hand to reach someone and bring them along and teach them, because that's what I do. They would get on me at BET because I would bring information in that would broaden someone's horizon and say, oh, yeah, you can do this. As a matter of fact, I have my form for Rockport, Maine, which I learned about working with Spike. And I brought it to BET. And next thing I know, my Rockport information has been duplicated, sent around all throughout the building, and the young lady who stepped in to take Joe's place tried to use it against me. And I said, ma'am, this is my information. What are you talking about? She's like, what do you mean? I flipped it over, said, that's my address in Queens, New York, 22. I can't say it on here, but this is my address. This is my information. And she said, oh, so I took it off her desk because I said the only person I gave this to was Charles Montgomery because that's my guy. I said, Charles, you need to go to Rockport, man, and check this out. I had a guy that was supposed to replace me as an assistant, Tim Nicholson. He utilized that same information to go take classes. So I'm all about teaching because I was brought up, if you come to the table with just an appetite, then you're not worthy to be at the table. You got to bring something, not just take away. So I've always applied that. I bring something to the table because I want to teach. I teach now. I've taught in the past, special programs, different programs, high school, college, and elementary, because I want to demystify this, you know. And if you ask people about television or production, especially kids. No, not even just kids. They think you make $1 million. They don't know all the time that's put in, that you A 12-hour day is nothing. You put 12-hour days in easily, but you're satisfied with the product that comes out in the end. The love and the joy of that is being able to sit in a theater and watch your name roll across the credits and see a litany of people that you've worked with and see their names and recognize the names and whatnot. When I was dating, and I'm a movie buff, so when we go to the movies, I'm pointing out everything. So, oh my God, that's a terrible shot. What do you mean? What do you mean? Watch when they go by the next building. Look at the windows. Oh my God, I can see the camera car. Exactly. I'm pointing out things, and it got to the point where it was like, look, we can't go to the movies. As a matter of fact, you go first so that you've seen it, and then the second time you go for entertainment value, and I can enjoy the movie. That's what I would hear. I'm like, oh, okay. Then I had some folks that were movie buffs, such as myself, and they would go in with me. That's why I turn my hat like that. So, we go in there, we enjoy it. We like, well, we chew a movie up. And before you know it, everybody in our row was like, oh, yo, I saw that. I saw that. Hey, did you see this? It's like, it's about teaching. It's demystifying this thing that's called production, television, film. You get to enjoy it.
I
And
love it.
that's my whole thing. Yep.
I love it. I think, your heart of being a teacher just comes through. And I think, what I'm hearing is that the Black Room is about not gatekeeping. It's about giving. It's about integrity. It's about sharing. It's about not compromising. It's about family. It's about
Mhm.
hard work. It's about demystifying the industry. And so, in a time like now in 2025, wow, the Black Room is going to be refreshing. It's going to be revealing. It's going to be something that people have never seen before. I had a question about the uniqueness of this project, but you all have broken it down in a way that that question has been answered. So I guess the
Mhm.
last question I have for you both is, when will we see the Black Room and where will it be filmed? Because I know you're in pre-production and you're planning to move forward.
Well, right now, Brian and I weekly have been discussing a master plan, and that is to make sure that we first touch and agree with each other, that we are first talking with our attorneys, making sure that we are approaching this the right way. Because, in this business, if it's not contractually sealed and secured, a lot of times a lot of these productions can end up being stolen or someone trying to do their own version of it.
Mhm.
So Brian and I, when we started talking, we decided that what we would not do is be over anxious about
Mhm.
this whole story.
Mhm.
And we decided to say, hey, look, let's pray about it. Let's make sure we add when we're ready to add to it. And let's make sure that we secure it properly. So now that it's secured, now that it's copywritten, now Brian and I are sitting down having that conversation. Who would you like to invite to the table? What can they bring? What can they do? We're looking at a genre of maybe 18 to 64-year-olds as our, the
Core
audience that we
audience.
want to reach. You know what I mean, Brian?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
also, what we're doing is we're also looking at, I think Brian likes to call it docudrama, series. Right? We're looking to maybe
Mhm.
think about the primes, the networks, the live streams. We're looking at the technology now so we can determine what will get our best outreach. We don't want to just stay here in the US. We want to go global. We want to go international. We want to
Mhm.
have an opportunity to bring, you know, youth in that want to be a part of this project, be on the set, help create, get their minds going. So I think when we're talking about the timing of this, although we're doing all of this planning, our hope is to, at this point, have these type of conversations so you can hear what we're talking about, and then reach out to us. Let us know, hey, I see the vision. I see what you all are doing. I want to be a part of this project. So we're kind of doing like Brian would say he did at 40 Acres. I think they called it guerrilla. what do you call it? Guerrilla productions. How do you do
Guerrilla filmmaking, baby.
guerrilla filmmaking? So the bottom line is, what we want to do is, this ain't about me, mine, Brian's, and his. This is about Brian and I realizing we got to collaborate. And I think in the industry, a lot
Hmm.
of times people are fighting and dividing versus collabing. You know, but because Brian wants to wear a New York hat and I want to wear a DC or LA hat, doesn't mean we can't get together and work together on a project. That's the problem a lot of times in our communities. We got to get together, bring what we have, what we're good at, and make that one thing into something that's very powerful, that's going to last forever. So with the Black Room, Sean, is what we're hoping to do is we're hoping and praying that we can be in some form of serious pre-production talks by the end of the year, and in 2026 be going into production. It would be wonderful if we can get, the first season done. Right now, Brian and I sat
Hmm.
and we talked. We got about 55 episodes. We want to break that up into 3 seasons, right? Because we got a
Hmm.
lot to share. But our hope is to bring a great writers group together so we can get that thing running, worked up, and going. And so I think if we can by sometime mid 2026 get this thing greenlit, we're also hoping that we can go back into the studios in Washington, D.C., use the same studios that we did all the live films, because I think the studios are still sitting there. Brian, if I'm
Yes.
correct, you got to tell me. So we'd like to
Mhm.
work out of D.C., in D.C., or reach out to some folk that we know that's down in Richmond, Virginia. And Brian, where's our man without saying his name? Where is he? Is he down in Louisiana?
Several, yes.
Okay. We might need to talk to Cat Williams. Cat is
Yes,
out there
sir.
talking about building a studio. Cat's not afraid. Cat been talking about Gatekeeper since last year. Matter of fact, he said 2025, all lies will be told or shared. Is that what he said,
Right.
Shaughnessy? you know,
He said in 2024, all lies will be exposed.
there we go. He said
Right.
something like that. So we're hoping that
Mm.
by 2026, we can get to rolling. We can get to rolling some tape, rolling some film, recording. We want to pull this committee together and get this thing going. So that's what I'm hoping. I think Brian and I, we're on the same page. Brian, if there's anything you want to share, please do. But we're looking at this thing, get this thing going, because this thing is something that has not been done yet. And we're hoping to bring this thing live and ready to you locally and globally.
Definitely. Shawness, you made me remember this statement. The Black Room that we're putting together is for us, by us, and about us. No one else has done that. There have been falsified documents trying to represent what a Black production entails. But those writers that created these things have all been white. And when they see the success of an all Black production, they take it and then they make their own, the same as they did with Living Single, which then became Friends. They'll starve the Black one out to throw more to the white production because they own and operate the networks. They say, well, people want to see this. They feel more comfortable seeing this. They don't feel comfortable seeing intelligent Black people. That's white America. What are you talking about? And Gary mentioned this in his statement, as well as you did, that see, Florida Avenue is key. Florida Avenue, U Street corridor is key. That was our Black Broadway.
Mm.
Before desegregation, we had it all there. Growing up, we now this may be a shocker for some people. He looks older than I do, but I'm older than he is.
Don't
But
let the gray hair fool you.
there you go. But the key to it is we grew up knowing nothing and no one but Black entrepreneurs. My grandfather owned his own cabs. After that, he owned his own dump trucks. We knew nothing but Black entrepreneurs. doing it the right way. Gary found out through me running my mouth, because I'm a heck of a storyteller too. Before Gary was born, I was the little red kid, okay? I was going to Mr. Sam's with my great uncle and my grandfather, and they made me sit outside and watch them shine shoes while they went inside and they talked about what was going on. And and then come out of there and we go to the corner store, black owned, black run. I get me a piece of candy. We keep on going down Florida Avenue. And that was life as I knew it.
Well,
Gary
let
grew.
me jump
Yeah, go
let
ahead.
me
Go
let me jump
go ahead.
in, because you said something, and our listeners don't know this, but you
Hmm.
went to Mr. Sam's, and I found out before we filmed this interview that Mr. Sam had a connection to Gary. So can you enlighten our listeners on that? Because I found that fascinating.
I can do that. Again, I'm older than Gary. So Gary wasn't even here yet. Look, my grandfather took me to see his soon to be grandfather, which was Mr. Sam.
Sam
That's
Isaac is his name. 14th
There
and U
you have
Street,
it.
so
$13.42. That was
what
a
was that
black
first
owned business.
two? Go
Woo.
ahead. Sorry.
1342 U Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. We live right across the street from what people of D.C. proper know as the Republic Gardens. And
Hmm.
my grandfather was a businessman. He was a ladies' man, but he was also a very wise entrepreneur. What he did
Hmm.
was he built relationships with the people in the community, which he just he had. I'll start with this. I'm trying to. It's so many businesses he had, but his main business was a DC cab company, and then from the DC cab company, him and my grandmother opened up a cleaners and a shoe shop. So the big glass window, you walk by, look down, you see the blacksmith taking off heels, rubbing them across the brushes, shining them up. You had the shoe shine boys sitting up with the feet on the prongs, and they were slapping with the leather. They were making noise. We had Willie the Wino coming in, beat up, drunk. My grandmother cleaning them up, and then we also had, Spoons would come in. The Jamaican man would come in, beating spoons up and down his thighs and legs and singing old gospel music. And as a little boy, I grew up sitting on the windshield, and my grandma would say, "Boy, don't get up off this sill." Now, what they need to know also out there, the people who know, the baby boomers know that U Street was also a red light district. So as a little boy, I used to watch pimps and prostitutes, but I watched the community flourish. There's so much history there, and I think that's where the storytelling side came from me. And then when Brian and I met, it was just I was like, it was like he's like a brother from another mother. It was no coincidence that we could share the same stories, and who'd know or who'd guess that we both end up at BET trying to do what we're doing now, which is trying
Hmm.
to tell profound stories to help and educate people who love the arts and media.
Well,
Exactly.
I just want to say thank you to both of you, Gary Mason and Brian Harris, for creating the Black Room. And what we will do is we will link with this video a way for people to donate and connect with you all if they would like to be a part of this. And uh, it's all love, it's all joy, it's by us, for us, and it's about us, and it's the Black
Hmm.
Room. So I am excited, and congratulations in advance, because I know this is going to be a hit, and I know that people are going to enjoy it, be educated, and be enlightened when this comes out in 2026.
Thank you for having me.
And I thank you also. I must send a great thank you to you. And if you could hold up your prize, because you cannot go out with not folks not knowing that you are wifey with the bat.
Yes, if you all don't know, Shauna's Mason is my wife. Look at her.
We got the Howard University connection, and I got the bat. And when you join us for part two, I'll break down why I'm wifey with the bat.
Thanks again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you all. God bless.
All right.